Good night and welcome to Mindful Life 432. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Once you're on the inside, make sure you hit that like button, double tap that screen. We're talking all manner of news and current affairs that pertain to Trinidad to some extent, but also in the world in general. We're just speaking about the fact that the former president of the United States and candidate to be their president again was the victim, reportedly, of another attempt on his life. Now, this one seems to have been much less of a close shave, but the fact that it was another attempt says something. And okay, there are many people who go down the hoax line, but I think those who go down the hoax line are those who just do not like Trump, and they don't like the idea that maybe there might be some sympathy that could be sent his way, and that's more of a cope mechanism. That's not being honest with the information in front of you. Being honest with the information, it's not a hoax. That's not what is going on here. Now, to me, it's an interesting question. Why him? Why so many would want him dead? As someone said before, it seems like whoever it is, they aren't sending their best. But the situation, as some people surmise it, is that it's not necessarily that someone sends a specific assassin, but if you leave honey out, ants will come. And if you leave honey out and then you open the door, you may get bees and other animals too. So it's not necessarily that anyone is sending anyone, but it is a reality that the rhetoric in their politics has been ramped up. And then the question could be asked, okay, it might be that there are always quite a few crazy people who would be willing to take a shot, literally, at trying to take out a famous person. So it's not about the people who try to do it, it's the fact that they have come so close. And a question could be asked about why is it that they are being, as some may say, allowed to come so close. Like, do you think if a crazy person wanted to rush in at Mr. Obama? Because I'm sure there may be some crazy people out there in the United States who may want to take a rush at Mr. Obama. I hope they don't, but I don't doubt that they are. Do you think that it would be that easy? Because I think that's where a lot of the questions really pile up. It's not about the who are actually doing it, but who would be in charge of making sure it doesn't happen. Because it's like tetanus. It is said that tetanus, the bacteria, is everywhere basically. Oh, Mikhail Modesto, tetanus is everywhere. But it's only when the suitable circumstances are present in a wound where it is that you can get the resulting pathologies. No, not as yet. We haven't reached the revenue authority yet. So if it is like that, where there's always this threat around, but then certain things would allow the threat to be given more room, if you will. Now there's a question, I guess. There's a question. All right, let's see if we could jump into some of our news. Oh, Enigma, what's going on, Mr. Riddler? All right, jumping into news of contracts in Trinidad and Tobago. Besides talking about the attempt on the life of the U.S. former president, contracts in Trinidad. Hey, where is my window, man? HDC to demolish houses valued at millions at terrestrial development. The Housing Development Corporation intends to demolish more than half of the 100 housing units at the troubled terrestrial development located off Larry Source Road, Darby, due to infrastructure issues that have plagued the development. The buildings to be torn down are valued at millions of dollars. Despite this, the contractor Ricky Ragunanan, will be paid millions for work done on the development. The project, which began at $72 million VAT exclusive, is now estimated to be $112 million. At this point, the sum to be paid to Ragunanan is being negotiated between him and the HDC's lawyers since he was fired from the project in April of this year. The Guardian understands that a resolution was passed by the HDC board and that Ragunanan was informed of their decision, given that it would affect negotiations already on the way. They would not be demolishing all of the buildings. This contract, a design build finance, requires payment on delivery of fit-for-purpose units as per the agreed terms and contract. As a result, payments will be made in accordance with costs expended less costs of retrofitting defective units, the company said in a statement. So, okay, this contract, what is the extravagant news tonight? Hi. What is the issue with the homes? We'll get into that. But this contract was given on the idea of design, build, finance. So the contractor finances it, you design and build, and when you are finished, you're supposed to be paid based on that. Now, what they're saying is they would pay them, I suppose, based on the buildings that are finished up to spec. I suppose they won't pay them for the ones that have to be demolished. Now, the thing is, if they built 20 buildings that can stay standing and they are in good form, I have no problem paying them and don't pay them for the rest. If that is the case, which oftentimes it is not. Unlike other design build finance contracts in the public service, Ragunanan did not post a performance bond. He was allowed by the HDC to start and almost complete the project without posting a performance bond or any part thereof. A performance bond is basically money you put up that if you don't do it the way they expect it to be done, you lose that money. So to think of it, it's nearly like you're betting on yourself. It's like, I'm willing to bet this amount that I can do this job as desired, as planned. None of that was put up reportedly. And it's a normal thing in public sector contracts, but apparently here it was excluded. Hey, Ronnie. The contract valued at $72,043,871.90, VAT exclusive, for the construction of 103 homes was awarded to Ragunanan on January 29, 2020. According to the contract, the housing units should have been completed within 240 days from the day of commencement, which was November 20th, 2020. So that's 4 years later, yeah? The HDC intends to deliver on its mandate of providing government-subsidized units to those most deserving by constructing houses on its lands intended for its customers, particularly those who patiently opted to await the completion of the terrestrial project it added. As I always say, I think it would have made more sense the HDC sold the land to the people and let the people hire their own contractors to build their own homes. Because this is how it regularly goes. It's not only an issue in Trinidad and Tobago. I was looking at the news from our big noisy neighbors there. And in California, I believe they had a housing plan to build some kind of set of housing with 250 million US. And I think by the end, they completed 5% of it or something like that. It's how government functions. It's a very normal thing in government functioning. Of course, the kickbacks must be kicked. The kickbacks must be kicked. As it stands, there are more than 180,000 plus applicants throughout the country awaiting homes. On March 22nd, the HDC wrote to Raghunanan indicating their intention to terminate the contract after a 14-day notice period. The period ended on April 6th, after which Raghunanan was expelled from the site. On January 18th, after the HDC issued their first notice of termination, Raghunanan wrote to the HDC indicating that he was not in agreement. They conducted a study commissioned by CEP Limited. The study identified several defects, including with the foundation, the concrete first floor slab, and the inability to support loads. A geotechnical investigative report by EISL Limited in 2022 found that the failures observed on site have been known to be associated with non-conformance to basic construction methods and quality control requirements as it relates to building foundations. So the foundations were compromised. You think HDC solely do financial and allocation of land and people build it will be a better process? Yes, I do think so. Because I look at house building in Trinidad, home building, and no scene running, and I think by and large residential customers with small individual contractors get better quality for money than HDC projects. Nearly all HDC homes, when an owner moves in, they have to call their small contractor to make it actually livable, because it isn't livable upon acquiring. So either way, people still have to go back to their small contractors. And wouldn't that be better for the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, where even if you're saying the same loan that you are willing to give people to pay the HDC for that home, you're willing to give them to pay a contractor to build their home. And I think you will get much more quality homes. Now, the difficulty there is you wouldn't get the high rises where you really pack people in tightly. But I don't think people are meant to live like that anyway. I don't think those are good ideal uses of land when you're talking about moving in families anyway. And if people would like to live in that high-rise, really packed in high-density business, they are private developers, and those high-density developments tend to be much better when they're privately developed, and you find people who want to live like that go live there. But when the government does it and they take low-income people and pack them in really tightly into high-density housing, you make a ghetto. That's the formula for ghetto genesis. Ghetto genesis is that. That's how you create a ghetto. Renovations. Yes, my dad gets a lot of those from HDC customers. Me too. As a contractor, you could make a living. You go and specialize in repairing HDC houses, and you will make a lucrative living. You will make a lucrative living. Those apartments are for city livings. They are. And I think they are for people who want to live like that. People who are interested in staying bachelors, who want to live that single business person, single busy working person life where they fly out regular. They don't want a yard to maintain and all of that and all of that. Those are certain kind of people. And they would live grandly in that. Yes, condo vibes. And there are people who they would be beautiful for that because they aren't interested in mingling too much with the neighbors, and it's not going to bother them. But when you take low income people where the only problem they have is they don't have much money, but they have a family, they would like their own space, but then you cram them into Maloney Part 2 where their neighbor literally is right there. They have zero privacy. How a family is going to healthily grow? It's not going to happen. You're going to make a ghetto again, as they've done over and over and over. Nearly all the hotspot areas in Trinidad are high density government, low income housing. You would think at some point in time we would notice this, but no. People in government are far too intelligent for such things. The HTC contract with Ragunanan had two anomalies. He did not have a track record of constructing housing developments. Trestrail was his first housing development. Big side, Taro boy, big side. So this was his first housing development. Correct, Elizabeth? Ooh, you know stuff. The rats experiment. The, what they call them? The beautiful ones. The beautiful ones. Yeah. How does someone get this as their first contract and not have to put up the bond?
I didn't also.
What are you doing?
I color. I show.
Okay, love. Well, maybe, Mikhail, maybe. Now the HDC is taking over the project and they would have to re-tender for another contractor to go in there and repair. Now, the thing is, I remember reading about this earlier last year, earlier this year, and I believe they were attempting to get the contractor to do repair work on that. But all the time they would have had to knock that down, you know, because if the problems were in the foundation, it's not like they're going to get to the foundation and repair that. Sorry, people, what's up? That's a what's up sign. How old are you? Let me see. How old are you? Show me. How old are you?
I show. I see 2 years old. Sure.
You put these two down. And then hold it here. Hold it. So how old are you?
2 years old.
Of course she speaks, Ronnie.
Uncle Kangaroo.
Right, jumping to the next story here. UNC calls on procurement regulator for answers. Who received $5 billion in contracts? So the Office of Procurement Regulation, brand new office. Yeah, she overspeaks well. She doesn't stop. She doesn't stop speaking. Lots of words. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, the Office of Procurement Regulation put their first report in Parliament, and the report was full of bacchanal. Opposition MP Tanku is calling on procurement regulator Beverly Khan to disclose the names of the businesses which were awarded government contracts under single and sole source methods to the tune of $5 billion. The annual report to Parliament of the Office of Procurement Regulation (OPR) laid in the House of Representatives on September 9 said 5 billion in contracts was not awarded by public bodies by fully competitive tender procurement methods. The report said despite the new procurement regime advocating open bidding, the OPR observed an excessive use of limited and non-competitive procurement methods, worsening over time. Single and sole source methods were frequently used, indicating a level of resistance to the use of open bidding methods by public bodies. Yeah, people, they're just giving away 5 billion in contracts, no bidding. No bidding. Just, George, the contract is yours. Enjoy. Oi, what's going on? What you doing? What are you doing?
It's Daddy.
Yes, it is Daddy. And what you doing?
It's people swear. It's people avoid fish.
Okay. Ways why nobody don't know me. Small money man, Kamala drink more than that in white too. And that's people wonder why people get silly over politics like that. Well, there are 5 billion possible reasons why. Where all you have to do is know somebody and some millions are going to be coming your way. Somebody you know in the know, and 5 billion, well, part of the 5 billion could be coming your way. Imagine that. What are you doing? Are you ready to go sleep?
It's Lily.
You're seeing Lily?
It's Lily.
Are you ready to go sleep?
It's Lily.
Yes, it is Lily.
Let's go.
Explain 5 billion, please, Nathan. You mean how much money 5 billion is? Dalip Jairam, I saw that unregistered small businesses are set to be fined now. I saw that. And it's going to be by the day. They're trying very hard in Trinidad to get everyone to get tied into the system. And Trinidadians in general are very resistant to this. I was looking at an opinion article on this several days ago. Lovey, where are you going? I was looking at some commentary on this several days ago. Let's see. Why cash is king in Trinidad and Tobago? Last month, the Trinidad and Tobago International Finance Center issued a summary of the results of its survey of financial inclusion in this country. The Digitalization of Payments and Inclusion Survey, which they will use to design its national financial inclusion strategy, found, to nobody's surprise, that despite efforts to transition TT society to a cashless society, we want to hold on to our dollars. What is money? It is any medium of exchange that is centralized, generally accepted, recognized by all parties, and acts to facilitate transactions of goods and services. It is value codified. Its value as legal tender for that value can vary widely. The TT dollar is essentially useless outside this country. Even the US dollar, while widely accepted as a representation of value, will sometimes fall into national sinkholes around the world where it has no value at all. So the value of a financial instrument is what we say it is. Collectively, we are saying that cash is better than credit cards, debit cards, and online transfers. We are also saying to an alarming degree, fire burn banks. The percentage of citizens who have a bank account has dropped. Listening to that, the percentage of citizens who have a bank account has dropped from 81% in 2017 to 75% in 2023. Ronnie says, well, you have to make a certain amount before paying tax. Yes. But the thing isn't just about paying tax. It's about having information on all these businesses. And I would believe that a lot of this is tied up also in the Revenue Authority business that just cleared at the Privy Council. They now have the go-ahead to go ahead with the Revenue Authority. And wanting everyone to be registered in the system is exactly the way that you get centralization on all of these financial issues. But the problem is Trinidad and Tobago is by and large very averse state. And as we are seeing here, we are actually going in the opposite direction. And we are going in the opposite direction even while the banks and financial institutions are pleading and begging for everyone to join. Exactly, Ronnie, because, and it's not just the banks, it's the entire thing. Ease of doing business in Trinidad is a very difficult thing. It's much easier just to forget about all the registration and official business and just go along and do business with cash, and whoever pays you cash. The work you do. And it's simple like that, because everything else requires too much work and effort. So I don't think what is required is a fine for small businesses. I think what is required is to make the entire process much easier. Everything, make it simple and straightforward. Exactly, the ease of doing business in Trinidad is the main issue. Only 52% of the more than 2,000 survey respondents preferred to save their money in a bank. 82% preferred to save their money at home. Most people rather home saving than bank. Good night, Fabian. So the idea of attempting to find small businesses into registration, I don't actually think that will work. These concerns have led to debit card adoption dramatically outpacing credit cards among the banks. In 2017, 16% of users owned a credit card, a figure that dropped to 15% by 2023. By contrast, debit cards were held by 61% of the bank in 2017, rising to 88% in 2023. So what we're seeing is more and more people are attempting to divorce themselves from the centralized system. They don't want to be in it. They don't want your credit cards. They don't want your bank accounts. And it's not the way many people attempt to make it seem that it's because all these Trinidadians are ignorant. They don't have knowledge of the banking system. No, because more people used the bank in 2017. That means people who use the bank aren't using it anymore. Exactly, Dane can. Mikhail Modesto, you aren't the only one. But again, that's what the Revenue Authority is attempting to do. Listen. In order for you to catch somebody with their small business, that is going to require quite a bit of investigation. It's going to require lawyers. Are you telling me you're starting fighting down source of funds from small businesses first. I am not big on the protesting, but you might catch me in a protest if it is that the first case brought by the Revenue Authority is on some small business that refused to register, while we have criminals flaunting wealth all around the country. Wow, RBC charged me $65 for a wire transfer to a local company. Disgusting. Ronnie says I'm a hobby entrepreneur. Facts. Facts. Is that a business you want? No. I just do this for fun, you know. I'm just out. This is my hobby. So, do they pay you? Well, it's not really a payment, you know. It's like a gift. Yes, T. Stevens. It's a gift, like TikTok gifts. Yeah, Mikael, you know, it's a gift. I went and I just did my hobby, and I happened to do my hobby in such a way that it benefited that person. And that person saw such and decided out of the goodness of their heart that they would gift me something in return. Who am I to say no? You know, it's just the way it goes. Small business? What are you talking about? What? No. Hobbies. How are they going to do that? That'll be interesting. The how. What's going on, host? Men have 1.5 million. Men have 1.5 million in jewelry in St. Paul, but they're studying doubles money. Hey. Maybe they have registered businesses. I don't know. Maybe they do. Didn't the guy who passed away from Sealuts, the community leader, wasn't it said that he had several businesses registered to his name? You know, he was a businessman. So maybe he does. And that's the thing, and many of those laws oftentimes they snag the small fish, and all the big piranhas and sharks and barracudas go swimming away because they will bite through the net. They don't care. They're about breaking the laws anyway. So, you know, it's not like it's a real bother to them. A judge says, let's jump into crime a bit. Judge wants new laws to root out problem. Charge parents who push children into life of crime. High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad has called for parents who push their children towards a life of crime to face prosecution. He also urged the church to come together and help take back TNT from criminals. He was preaching a message in a Presbyterian church in Claxton Bay. Mothers cannot continue to protect truant children. Mommy does not have a nice child if he maintains the household with the proceeds of crime. Serious thought should be given to enact legislation to prosecute the parents of child offenders who embolden, enable, and encourage their children to pursue the path of criminality. Yes, speaking as a lay minister, yes, not speaking as a judge. No. The West Bank record label is out of Tortuga or Tortola or some one of those. The reputed leader of that group is in prison. He is reputed to be very massive in other things than record making, very wealthy from it, and to have connections all through the Caribbean doing all manner of various activities. There were mass shootings in Barbados over the weekend, I believe. A mass shooting, someone went into a bar and shut up the bar. The Caribbean has some serious things going on. But this idea of prosecuting the parents, I don't mind it. But I think many people wouldn't like the actual results that come from it. I saw one of the later school shootings in the United States. They're lining up to prosecute the father. They're already prosecuting the father for buying the weapon for his son. And, you know, I don't actually have a problem with it. Because the young guy obviously wasn't stable, and to buy him a weapon is some reckless business. But then I think because that's a situation that doesn't make for a bad front page. You know, it's a white father and a little kind of rascal looking young boy. It doesn't look like, oh, you should feel so much pity for them. But what happens when it's a lot of single mothers of pretty much one race? What's going to happen if that starts to be the case? Would people be okay with that? Because the vast majority of criminals are from single mother homes. So if you're prosecuting a parent for what the child did, it's going to be a lot of single mothers. Are you okay with that? Would we be okay with that? A procession of single mothers going to prison? Stoutek says, guess not. You know, me personally, what's the cause of criminal element in Trinidad? Well, that's an impossible question to answer. Because the criminal element isn't only in Trinidad. That's a human condition kind of thing. But there are things that make it worse. So, personally for me, okay. And here's the thing. I think the consequence should lead to changed behavior ahead of hand. If you know the possibility is, no, someone better, it is not that. Poverty doesn't cause crime, crime causes poverty. These boys are not hungry. These boys are not hungry. They're criminally minded. Poor people aren't criminals. Poor people just lack. Being poor doesn't make you more criminally minded. These guys are criminals. And it could be shown when you look at oftentimes what they steal when they steal. Hungry boys aren't stealing. When they rob the Chinese grocery, they make off with the liquor cabinet first. They make off with the liquor cabinet. That's what they go with first. Opportunities are need. They don't lack opportunity. Trinidad is replete. We're overflowing with opportunities. It's not opportunities they lack. It's discipline. It's discipline. And discipline is something that comes from parenting. Not who are opportunities not available for someone better? Who doesn't get the opportunities? Those communities that are seen as less fortunate have so many opportunities that you have gang leaders becoming millionaires off of the amount of opportunities that are flooded into the zone. They aren't lacking opportunities. They are lacking discipline, and they are lacking structure in terms of law enforcement. I've said it many times. In those communities where the criminal element has taken over, the law enforcement have to go in El Salvador style and get the criminal element out, and then they can move on from there. The non-nuclear homes, well, yes, that's true. And that's what I was going to say. I think the consequence, what it might lead to, is people looking at the decision, the original decision, more carefully. If you know that as a single mother, you are going to face legal consequence for what happens to your child, then on your path, on the part of your parents, on the part of your family and friends, it's in their best interest to make sure that you don't go down that road. You see, I think making it, and understand what I'm saying, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have empathy and help people out. That's not what I'm saying. But I think attempting to clear the consequences, negative consequences of bad behavior, encourages bad behavior. I think the eradication of ignorance is viable. No, it's not. What is ignorance? Ignorance is not knowing. There are always going to be things that we don't know. There are always going to be things that we don't know. It takes a village to grow a child. You know, I partially agree with that. I understand the sentiment of that fully, but no. Because many ghetto communities like to have that idea. You know, it takes a village. The ghetto is love. The ghetto is unity. You know, you could go in any house in the ghetto and a mom's go feed you and ting. But no, the problem with the whole village is there isn't daddy to hold you and put some real discipline on you. But too much what we should know, we don't know. I agree with that. That there is too much ignorance. But I don't think we can eradicate ignorance. And I don't actually think that ignorance is the reason for crime and criminality. Because we now know more than we knew 50 years ago. And there's more criminality now than there was 50 years ago. You see, that binds closely with the poverty causes crime kind of idea, where poor people and dumb people are the criminals, which is not true. They are intelligent, rich criminals. It's not about the money or what you know. It's not being implemented by those that... It's not ignorance. Ignorance isn't the problem. People 1,000 years ago were more ignorant than we are now, but in many ways they would have lived better. Ignorance isn't the problem. That's like the people who say the reason why there's teenage pregnancy is because there isn't enough sex education in the school. Like teaching a child the details about intercourse is somehow going to change their mind about engaging in it. It's not about ignorance. It has nothing to do with what they know and what they don't know. And what we need is an educational program inside the ghetto. We need to go in the ghetto and teach all the ghetto youths that, you know, you really shouldn't thief and you really shouldn't kill people. Because none of these ghetto youths ever heard that before. They don't know that stealing and murder is wrong. They didn't know that, you know. They still need to go out there and get that taught to them, you know. They are victims of the society. They don't have the opportunities and the education and all of that, and that is why. The victims of the society part is victims of bad parenting and bad parenting decisions for the most part, I would say. That's where they are victims. And in that case, hi, good night, Avril. And in that case, who would be the victimizers of those children? The parents. And who should the consequence be paid to? The parents. And here's the reality of this. It seems cruel when we have a sophisticated society built up around it. But let's imagine we strip away the intricacies of society. All the little additions we get from society, we strip that away. We're just out there in the jungle as a family. And some woman runs off, makes a child with a man from another tribe, and then goes off into the jungle by herself to take care of the child. If that child is badly disciplined, who is going to be hurt by that child? Not the parent. So who should the consequence be falling on? I feel I'm late to the subject, so I'm improvising to the conversation. What's the premise of the live? Well, I'm reading news here. I'm reading articles here. And the premise of this piece of the conversation was a statement made by Justice Frank C. Prasad in a sermon he preached, where he said laws should be put in place where consequences should fall on the parents of badly behaved children, of children who find themselves on the wrong side of the law, that their parents should face consequences too. And I tend to agree. Because if you are in a position where you can be rewarded by their bad behavior, you should be in a position to be punished from their bad behavior. What's an anomaly? What is an anomaly? Someone better. If you are in a home where a criminal is bringing money in and you are eating, liming, drinking, watching off of criminal activity and benefiting, then when they face their punishment, you should as well. To me, it shouldn't even be that difficult. But I don't think we're going to do it, because you're going to end up locking up ghetto single mothers by a large amount. Militant Rockstar says, I wonder if the Goodly Justice has a particular type of crime and parent in mind whilst preaching. I don't know that for a fact, but I do. I have a particular crime and parent in mind while he's preaching. And is that a problem if I have that? I have young Afro-Trinidadian youths with Afro-Trinidadian single mothers in mind. Is that a problem that I have that in mind? Not to you what? What's not to you? Do you not know the demographics of violent crime in Trinidad and Tobago? Would we deny the demographics of violent crime? To me, that's not a problem. And I'm an Afro-Trinidadian with an Afro-Trinidadian mother. Like, to me, getting defensive and protective and trying to build up barriers, and let's not talk that, you know, that's a bad thing to, no, you don't say that, don't say them things. That doesn't help the situation, because we could say what we want. Let's never say these things. Oh, Ria, we could let's never raise these issues like that. And tomorrow, it's still going to be Afro-Trinidadian youths locking your neck, stealing the cars, and murdering. The violent crime. Yes, I have, Fire Flame. Oh, you for it wholeheartedly. Oh, well, in that case, I don't mind it across the board at all. At all, of course. But what I am saying is, if you do that, almost surely you are going to see a disparity. But of course it should happen across the board. And yes, if some man is charged for embezzlement and it is proven that his dependents or those around him knew about it and benefited, well, of course they should go down too. I don't disagree with that white collar just the same. But the fact remains, if we do that, there is going to be a disparity. And that's just the reality. But I really think we need to return to understanding the consequences to demotivate some of these behaviors. Demotivate some of these behaviors, really and truly. Because it's a problem. How do we get rid of single parent homes? What's the solution to that? Yes, it's like that, Mikhail Modesto. Like, no, we shouldn't benefit from crime. That shouldn't be a controversial opinion.
Daddy,
Yes, love.
I want to get a
You want what? Eradication. Eradication of ignorance.
1, 3, 4, 5,
What's that?
5.
Eradication of ignorance is going to decrease single motherhood. So how come single motherhood increased in the time in the world when knowledge expanded the most? Knowledge expanded the most exponentially within the last 60 years, and single parent households expanded the most within the last 60 years. How do we have that corollary? If eradication of ignorance is the key to ending that, I think it may actually be a statistical reality. In fact, it is a statistical reality that more educated people are more likely to divorce. I agree with you. 100%. Discipline, morals, and values. Hey, you see those words? Morals and values? They cause A&R Robinson to have Mr. Pandey spitting on the grave after he died, you know? Because Mr. Robinson as president found that the Pandey-led group didn't have the spiritual morals and values. And that was, whew. But yes, that is it, Ria. How do we get that back into the society? But that is the lack of knowledge. No, it's not. Discipline, morals, and values are three separate things from knowledge. Co-host, you're doing the most. Let's go, Dodo. All right. Discipline, morals, and values are different from knowledge. Knowledge is the accumulation of information. Exactly. Knowledge is the accumulation of information. You could be knowledgeable and indisciplined, because discipline refers to creating positive habits in someone. And disciplining someone is the process we go through in attempting to create positive habits. Yes, thank you, but we aren't talking about wisdom. We're talking about discipline, morals, and values. So, if you do not have the reinforcement of good habits, you will be indisciplined. And you could acquire all the information in the world, and you would use that information to bring the world to hell. Someone better, are you high? you're speaking like you're on a cloud and you're just attempting to write a book or something here. Like you're not following. We're not talking about knowledge. Knowledge is the accumulation of information. We're talking about forming good habits, discipline. Morals and values have to do with what is good and bad. Because you see, in order to do discipline, because I just used the word good. Good is a qualifier. We're trying to form good habits. So, we have to have a proper understanding of what good is if we have to form good habits. And what good and bad and evil and righteousness is has to do with morals and values. None of these things really and truly have to do with knowledge in and of itself. So, okay, you could have knowledge of a religion that gives you a perspective of moral and values, but it's not that someone who doesn't have that is lacking in knowledge. They may have a wide amount of general knowledge. It's not knowledge they need, it's morals and values. And someone who is lacking in discipline, it's not that they need more information, they need someone around them to reinforce the good habits over and over and over till it becomes part of their natural persona. Mikhail Modesto says, if criminals didn't know crime is wrong, why do they run from the police? Ria says some people don't like to be told anything. There are parents who genuinely don't want to hear. That's true. Well, when I'm using discipline here, the understanding is that there's an adjective with it. A well-disciplined person. Well, yes, he's us. That's my point. In order to discipline someone into good habits, we need to know what good is, thus morals and values. They actually know what is right or wrong, yeah? Ria says anything bad about their child, they don't want to hear anything bad about their child because they hear it as they're not doing their job or a good job at parenting. Yep, that's, as a teacher, I know that. There are some parents, they refuse to hear any criticism. And in my mind, I'm like, if you don't hear criticism, how would the child get better? And you know what's so strange to me? Oftentimes, it's the parents that need the criticism the most are the ones most resistant to it. No one must criticize me and my child. And you and your child need the most help because things aren't going positively. And sometimes some parents whose children are already at the peak, they come and they want to hear every single detail. Yes, I know they're good. But anything that needed a little... Was there anything that, needed a little tweaking, needed a little fixing? Make sure to tell me. And every week they come and they fold their hands and they watch you in the eyes. So, And they watch down at the child like this. And then watch you. Okay. All right. So, he isn't reading. All right. No, you don't worry about that, sir. We'll take care of that over the week. Yes. You will have that done for you by next week, sir. You will have that done. Yes. Parents like that. And it's kind of amazing to me how often it is the parents that need it the most. What you raise an issue and they're trying to defend the child. A teacher friend of mine was telling me about an early childhood center that they're teaching, and the child is defecating and all manner of insanity. And when they inform the mother is laughing and he ain't easy on this, yeah, easy enough. Moms, he's supposed to be easy. Ria says, and some parents believe that all teaching is on teachers. They're asking why they're bringing homework, because that means they have to do work with them. Well, they're your child. You are supposed to seek your own child's interest. Any parent who thinks only teachers are supposed to do all the teaching is going to fail their child. They're going to fail their child. And it's like, to me, why have the child if you don't want to raise a child? Like, why? Why would you have a child if you don't want to raise a child? Like, for me, I don't even want the teachers to teach my child. I'll teach my child. I'm good. We'll homeschool. I think some parents are not yet ready to be parents. I think we have trained people into that mindset, because I was having a discussion with someone recently about that same thing, and people so young and they're not ready to be parents, and they're not ready to be parents and all of that and all of that. And I don't think it's like that, because people 60 years ago were 21 years and already parenting 2 children and already on the way. And we're doing as good as could be expected of humans. So the not ready to be parents part is something that we have trained into society. An extreme selfishness has been trained into our society, where people don't understand living for a child. So you see articles talking about you should never stay together for a child. Marriage was always for the children. Of course you should stay together for a child. Yes, I said it. You should. Stay and be miserable if you need to for the child. And the narrator, of course you would say Naria, because you have been influenced by the moderns. You have been influenced by the modern thinking that is self first. And it's self first to the fault of the next generation. Self first to the level where we aren't even reproducing enough to carry on our generations. We are below replacement level. We are so selfish. Because why would I have children? That's going to decrease my value of life. Why would I even do that? It's not about you. You had your first 20 years, enjoy it. Go make some children and do something responsible to carry society forward in a positive manner. The children with miserable parents beg to differ. Little Miss Mediator, I don't doubt that you know the stats. Go look at the stats in single parent and even disagreed but together parents, and look at the children's results. I am a teacher. I've been doing it for some years. I have looked at this over time. There are some households, the mother and father don't even sleep in the same room. But they will not leave each other as long as those children are there. And both of them going to come and stand up or sit down next to each other for parents' meeting. They don't like each other at all. But they're going to do it. And after the years in school, the mother and father who was like, nah, I can't take that, I gone, is about me. You know? Never stay in a miserable situation. And you have to be happy out here, you know? You have to see about yourself. Self-care. Self-care. And watch their children. 5 years later, CXC results. Another 5 years, university finish, job market reach. Nathan, it's difficult to keep oneself afloat far less a family. I agree, 100%. It's difficult. That's what makes life meaningful, the difficulty of life. If you're looking for ease, sorry, you're born, life ain't that. Nathan, a lot of older people are so miserable because they legit care about everyone but themselves. You want to see miserable? Watch what happens when people who cared about themselves for 60 years pass 60, and see what happens to them then. Because here's what, after 60, you can't care about yourselves that well let me just say 60. After 80, you can't care about yourself that well anyway. Life ain't about yourself. You can't apply a blanket on this topic. I think I can. And I think the stats show that the blanket is accurate. The stats show it. We have adopted an extremely selfish view on life. and we're seeing it in the culture. I don't know how many of them that there might be in the comments, but I'll always make that argument because I find it, the defenders of it, to be some of the most silly arguments generally. The promotion of abortion is a telltale sign of that level of selfishness. You listen to how it's promoted, and it's the same baby sacrifice of 2,000 years ago, of 3,000 years ago. In order for us to have success, we have to do this. I would have never been able to be successful if I couldn't. You know, just at the time it happened, I was entering university and I was able to successful. The epitome of selfishness. It's the epitome of selfishness. Believe what you want about the morality of it, but it is the very epitome of self-focus. And I hope no one attempts to go down to the gruesome line on that, because the reality is the legalization and promotion of it has nothing to do with the R's and the pedos and all of those kind of things. It has nothing to do with that, the promotion of it, really and truly. Life extends beyond humans. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Pertaining to what exactly with life extends beyond humans? If you want to apply a blanket here, it is once men get in line in society, all will fall in line. You know, Ria, I 100% agree with you there. You know? I agree. And here's the reality of that I find interesting. Because lots of men out there in the red pill manosphere area online would regularly tout that men are meant to be the leaders, and no woman should even be in positions of, and okay, brother, okay, I wouldn't fight you, okay, but if that is the case, and men are supposed to be the leaders, then anything that goes wrong, it's really on the men. What has really caused us to be such a selfish people now? I don't know if I could give a blanket statement on that. I think there are many causes. Social media exacerbated it. The extreme increase of personal wealth exacerbated it. Listen, each individual human now is probably magnitudes wealthier than entire families and generations were a couple 100 years ago. We are extremely wealthy. So selfishness is possible. To some extent, selfishness wasn't even possible before. Yeah. In order to function as a human, what's going on? In order to function as a human, you literally had to work together. But now you could function as a human while being selfish. Women always having to consider everyone but themselves is the reason so many women choose themselves, their goals, their passions. I'm not saying all women are selfish, but the expectation that women should do for others, whether it is sister, wife, etc., I suppose would increase their selfishness. I don't actually agree with that though, Ria. I don't agree with the kind of idea that women are the more selfless gender, because that immediately goes into a measurement competition about who does more for who. And I think the reason that seems so imbalanced sometimes is just because of the personality differences by and large between males and females. A man will work himself to death and never complain about it, and he may be offended if his wife brings up how hard he works. He doesn't even want his wife to talk about that too much, because he just sees that as, you know, there's a man duty and that a man does and a man does and a man does. does. While the wife may literally outline everything she does, itemized every day. Look, I done washed and I done. Difference in personalities, more neuroticism. Auntie, grandma, etc. They always have to make it happen, and the men don't. I don't know what family you grew up in, Ria, but I don't know that to be true at all. That may be your family thing, but as I know it, the men provide breaking their backs quite literally, straining themselves quite literally, dying. Like, I mean, we could look at who dies on work more, who does the most dangerous jobs, who do the most disgusting jobs. It's always the daddies, literally, always daddies.
Okay, so can I just ask a question?
Of course.
With regards to something that you said from before.
Mm-hmm.
When it is we were talking about, before you started to talk about like the comparison of men and women, we were talking about the fact that in society, or yes, when it is I joined in, like you're talking about in society, that there's a certain demographic that could be attributed to certain criminal activities.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were talking about, at some point in time, you started to talk about that there is a loss in society for children as parents are not accepting responsibility.
Correct.
One of my statements, and I made the statement on if it is men fall in line, everything else falls after. Because, and it's not just scripture, but in general, if it is men are leaders of not just the church, but leaders of the household, leaders of nations, etc., etc., unless a man accepts and fulfills his role as a man, everybody else would be trying to fulfill what it is he's supposed to do. So if it is a man doesn't fulfill his role, a woman then tries to do what he's supposed to do, and she obviously cannot do it like how she would do it, or how he would do it. And then sometimes you have the child trying to do what the woman is supposed to do, which is not that child's role and function. So hence my statement that once it is men fall in line in society, everything else falls in line.
I don't disagree.
Which is why I make the statement now where it is I say that women have always had, not always, sorry, I don't want to say recently, but throughout history, throughout time, there has been this thing where women have had to step up because men aren't. And when it is you look at the amount of single parent relationships and you see the majority of them are mothers, there is no denying that majority of the time women have to step into that male role.
Let me ask a question. Ask a question. What does it look like when a man has to step up because a woman didn't? How does that look? Have you ever seen that? Yeah, but how does it look? How does it look? What? Explain a situation like that to me. How does it look? How do you notice?
I notice well, for me, it would be either one out of two things. If it is, I see a father predominantly active in the child's life, even before I consider if it is, I would consider that they're either one of the two things, that he's an active father with the mother involved, or that the mother is not involved and he's the only parent. That's just, so to me that's either in a relationship or you're a single parent, which is the same thing, which is like, if it is able to see a mother before, so when she's a single mother, which is automatically assume that she's probably married, unless I only see that person and then I think, okay, because that's the only person that picks up the child from school or takes them to church or whatever, that, you know, a lot of people thought that my father was a single father because he was the only one to drop us and take us to church, for example.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was Anglican, we're Catholic, so the only person to take us to church was Daddy because he also went to church, and the only person to take us to school was Daddy because he drives. My mother didn't drive, but he was active, he was present.
You know what I notice in that? I notice that there isn't a clear vision for what it looks like when a woman isn't fulfilling her role. That's what I noticed from what you said there. And you see, it's similar to what I was just saying. Because of the nature of the different rules, it's easy to say and see when it looks like a man isn't fulfilling his role. But there are relationships that are going on where the men don't complain about it because men don't leave. It is trained in men that you have to stay because this is what men do. You have to stick through difficulty. So there are men that have lived through 50, 60, 70 years of torture, but you would never know because they don't say it. And you assume that then to mean that, well, women actually are suffering more. Granny and auntie and they are the ones who make it happen because you don't see the other side.
I'm going to ask, what is the quote-unquote suffering that the man is going through? Is it a suffering that the woman is putting him through, or is it that his profession is having suffering? Because a lot of the time when a woman is suffering, it is not that she's suffering because she has all these things to do. It is because she's alone in her relationship. So that's what I'm asking. Are you saying that the man's suffering is from his profession, from his job, or is it that his wife or his children or his home itself is what it is that is having him?
Oftentimes the wife, oftentimes the woman. Oftentimes. And you see, here's an issue I've noticed. It's easier because men are more aggressive, men are stronger. It's easier to notice when men do wrong. And the assumption is made that men do more wrong than women, but that's not actually the case. Evil isn't a gendered thing. Bad isn't a gendered thing. So in society, we notice the man who shoots up the place, but we didn't notice that a woman was pushing him behind, a woman home cooking the meals that he steal and carry. And when he goes to prison, he alone goes to prison, and we don't count that woman as a criminal. While she was performing the female duty inside the bandit team. But weren't we just saying that men are the leaders? So that is what you would expect. So if a woman is performing in her... What? If a person is leading, wouldn't you be their helper, their accomplice? Right. No. You see, wait, Rhea, we're going back to the men. We're trying to talk about the women and you go back to the men. We established this. Wait. Now, Rhea, let me finish the point. We established this is a bad man. We are trying to highlight how we notice bad women. And even in this, you are distorting it around from trying to point at the bad woman to return to the bad man. We established that men perform the leadership role. So if we are looking for the bad role that women perform, it would be in the bad subjugated role, the bad follower role, not so?
So her bad role is cooking the food that the man stole?
Yes, it is.
Okay, question. As, let's say it's his wife.
Mm-hmm.
The wife in this scenario, what is supposed to be as a righteous woman, what she's supposed to do?
If your husband is robbing and killing out a road?
No, I just want you to tell me, like, as a righteous woman, what is she supposed to do?
Call the police.
Call the police, right, great. No problem, that is not a problem. Call the police. And who is in jail?
The man.
Right, the man is in jail. So she now is in society as a righteous woman, but a single parent nonetheless. So now again, almost the same dynamic with whatever decision she made, which is to not just court this man, but when she realized what was going on, to now call the police. She's now a single parent who has to navigate both the male and female role on her own, right? And the idea that in society, women always have to carry the burden is very much there. You might say, well, he's in jail, he's carrying his burden already. But the entire family that he has created, he does not have the responsibility of. She does.
Well, here's the thing, Rhea.
He doesn't have to, he doesn't, She has to work. She has to provide for these children. She has to send them to school. She has to find ways to get them extra money for lessons or practice, involve them in extracurriculars, make sure they go to church to do
What you want to do?
whatever Bible study or confirmation, depending on whatever religion they are, and just keep them as to make them righteous persons in society. She now has to double work what she has, what all the things that she has to do, plus what he is supposed to do. I'm not saying that he should not be in jail. I am saying that even in this scenario, women always have to put aside everything and get the thing done. They don't have an excuse at the end of the day. It have nothing about I'm tired. And sometimes it might have the I'm tired and I can't make and I'm working myself to the bone. But majority of the time when it is you have situations like this, women always have to step up and there is no excuse that they have. And I hear what you're saying. I think it's in your day. If don't get me wrong, I think it's in your day. You had the parents who had the idea that you have to make it regardless of what. And I think my father was like that. But honestly, and I'll be real honest with you, I don't know how many single parents you see or hear from on a regular, but ask them simple questions like when it is they're talking or trying to get assistance. And even for the males who's supposed to get court maintenance for their child, males who supposed to get it from the female, it's always a set of excuses that no, when I get it, you go get it. Because for them, they don't have to get it now. They're not the primary parent. They're not the person who has to do it when it is it needs to be done. They get to come in when they feel like. If they get paid and they want to take them to Chuck E. Cheese, they could do that when they get paid. They don't have to study about if it is on this Friday, they have a $40 to pay the maxi to go to the zoo. They don't care if the walkathon sheet is $250. They don't care if it is bazaar coming up and they have bottle we can.
Here's the thing, right? The consequence to a man, the consequence to a man of making a bad decision is jail. The consequence to a woman of making a bad decision is single parenthood. And listen, I think if you ask a man who spent a life in prison, if he would rather raise his children or spend life in prison, he would choose raise his children, Rhea. That prison is easier than raising children? What? In what world is that the case? That's not the case. Nobody rathers prison than raise their children. That's not the case, Rhea. It's not. So the punishment there was meted out to both, but because of the same thing I said, you could only see one as facing a difficult time. You chose a criminal. You chose to make children. So that's why. You see, you're not understanding, Rhea. You are allergic to accountability for women. I am admitting the man chose a life of crime, so his punishment should be jail. The woman chose a life of crime too, because you went to marry the criminal. That's a life of crime, Tanti. If you choose to marry a king, you want a life of royalty. If you choose to marry a pauper, you want a life of poverty. If you choose to marry a criminal, you want a life of crime. So how come he has to pay the consequence, but you should not?
Wait, hold on. Okay, so two very important things there, right? We're not going to get into if it is she knew he was a criminal beforehand or not. We're not going to get into that because whether they know or not, I don't disagree with the point that women should be more selective in their dating process because very often you find that what it is women look for the most in terms of love for themselves, if it is they find it from somebody, they automatically ready to jump in on the deep end with that person. If it is they need to hear words of affirmation because you know they suffer with insecurities or in their mind they're just not good enough. If it is somebody comes along and says sweet things in the air.
Just let me say this to Haniel before we go on. I am not saying it's the woman's fault. I am saying it's both of their fault, so they both have negative consequences to face. Go ahead.
I forgot what I was saying, but basically I really can't remember what I was saying. The first point, but the second point is that even if it is this man has selected this particular life, right? I could understand you saying that the woman has an accountability to the partner that she selected, right? But it's not always that the partner that she has selected is the idea of the person that was introduced to her or that was courting her for a while. But even if it is at some point in time, he reveals his true self. The same thing that we were just talking about. If it is you're in a relationship with this person and you're already dependent on, even if it's $3,000 a month, but you're dependent on his part of the income to try and keep your family afloat. If it is he goes and robs Sings Minimart, are you going to call the police for him immediately? And you're saying yes, she should, because that is what she should do, because he chose such a thing. But again, she now has to again the consequences of choosing this man. She has to call the police. She has to live with him in jail, not getting help anymore. She has to go ahead and do all the things as a single parent. And you're saying that at the end of the day, she has it better.
I didn't say that. What I'm saying is we can't say better and worse. I said that, but I didn't say better.
Okay, so my thing is, before saying it's the woman's fault for marrying this person, did he have no other choice before stealing? Did he not think about his family before stealing? Did he not think about the future, week, month?
That's why he's going to be in prison and be advantaged. He may be repeatedly assaulted in prison. He would be advantaged and he would have lots of years to think about those foolish things. That's literally the point I'm making just now. Let me finish. That's literally the point I'm making. That he is facing a consequence because he made a bad decision. I am not against him going to jail and facing all the necessary consequences. But here's the thing. We started this off by saying men are supposed to be the leaders. Well, if you as a woman understand men are supposed to be the leaders, especially your man in your life, then who you choose to lead you is who would either lead you into poverty, lead you into happiness, lead you into a life of ease, lead you into a life of crime, lead you into a life of drug abuse, lead you into a beautiful family. That's you. You have the beautiful opportunity to choose who leads you. So if, just how we're saying, if the whole thing crashes, it's the man's fault for being a bad leader. If the woman ends up being led into a ditch, choosing the bad leader, isn't it also her fault for choosing a bad leader? Just as it is the man's fault for going where he goes and not leading properly, it's the woman's fault for not choosing wise leaders too. That's your position, isn't it?
Yeah, but we're also talking about the other variable where at the end of the day, the responsibility that she has, which is a direct consequence of his action.
Because he is her leader. As a follower, you are going to get consequences from what your leader does. Dr. Rowley is our leader. If Dr. Rowley go to America and Trump is president and he cuss up Trump, we're going to get consequences. We chose him as a leader. Well, some of us. But that's the idea of leadership. And that's why it's so important. That's why I 100% agree with you. Things are bad because the leaders are doing nonsense. 100%. But on the followers' side, you have to bear responsibility for who you choose as your leader. And your life is going to end up off of a cliff if you follow a bad leader. And it's going to be on you. And here's the...
Not denying that point. Agreed 100% that, again, women do have responsibility with regards to the partner that they select. But again, even, I'm not saying that men are only to blame. I'm not saying that at all. Don't get me wrong. But I am still saying that the idea that you have that, men will suffer for a woman or for their family or whatever, I don't think that exists. I think that women are the one that are enduring so much, and that is the reason why it is a lot of them are quote unquote selfish. No, they have children. Again, they have children who have grown up their siblings. And when it says you ask them if they want children, no, they don't. There are children who legit I don't know if you want to call them forced, right? If they're too fast or whatever, but they experience life at a speed, and it's not a fault of theirs because they were children. They're the innocent. They were meant to be protected. They were meant to enjoy their childhood, but instead they were doing different things. Whether you want to go as explicit in your thoughts or you want to go just as in the household having to run things. Like there are children who are turning 20, 21, 22, and they have been dreaming about, okay, from the moment I could leave my parents' house, this is what I would do. Or from the time I could leave, this is what I would do. I don't care if I have to rent and struggle and make it, I will do. And it is because of that whole broken family dynamic. And the reality is, even in the household with both parents, there are some times where, again, the man does not assume the role of a man. Hence the reason where everything else does not fall in line.
You know, I don't disagree that there are households where the man doesn't assume the role. I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't fight that. Yes.
This thing that you're saying here, Nathan, so it doesn't matter sometimes which way the woman chooses unless she picks that absolute perfect choice. Because if she picks somebody and realizes that he's not good and leaves, and as she's a single mother, that's a problem. If it is she realizes this person is abusive, even if she leaves before things get overly bad, the fact that she went with him in the first place is a problem. Even if it is there weren't signs in the initial instance when they met and started talking and started courting. If it is he is, no matter like how the situation
Ria,
comes out,
this is a woman's you are, and I'm glad you are giving the woman.
choice in a partner.
I'm glad you're giving the woman's perspective, but it is a woman's perspective. A woman's perspective is that all men, or a large percentage of men, are just really bad. While the reality is, those are 5% of the men. And the problem is, you all are really attracted to only 10% of the men. And the 5% that are really bad are in the 10% you all are really attracted to. So what happens is it's a 50-50 for you all now. It's only 5% of those guys you really attract. Well, 50% of those guys you really attract. Just now, let me finish. It's only 50% of those guys you're really attracted to that are good guys, and 50 are really bad guys. And here's how you could tell the truth in that. Felons are more likely to be fathers than graduates. Here's how you could tell the truth. More women are having children with less men. So it's not the problem of a majority of men, it's the problem of the psychopaths at 5%. That now that we have chosen freedom, women don't seem to be able to choose that well. And they are attracted to the bad men. And we have good men line up there, watching the woman repeatedly date the losers, and then say all of your men is just evil, and you going back to these guys. Listen, Future has 20 child mothers. As the 21st child mother, you are not going to change him.
Okay.
Avril, that is a statistical fact.
I agree on that last point where it is you say, when it is you talk about like certain people, like for example, as contradictory or hypocritical as it is, that's why I would never date a man who is a parent. I'm just saying, right? But just hear me also on this, Nathan, right? You are saying that there are more good men out there than bad men. And whilst I would like to agree with you, here's my thing, right? There are a lot of men, and remember you said you wouldn't know it from the woman's perspective, so I'm just giving you a little BTS behind the scenes. There are a lot of men who think that they're good men, and I'm not talking about just one or two things, little off with them, you know, they just leave the toilet seat up, or they just take off their shoes and kick it wherever in the house and then walk in. I'm not talking about like little things like that. There are a lot of men who think that they're good men. There are a lot of men as well who think that because they earn a comfortable salary, simply being able to have that in which could take care of a family means that they have no other sort of development or any other thing that they need to do. So even for a woman, as you're saying that they are like 80% of men out there are good, it
That is why back in the day, your daddy used to do it for you.
We don't know where the 80% are, but
Daddy knows.
one in the ones
Daddy knows.
promote themselves as, hey, we are good men. And again, it's the same, not a woman easily chain up, maybe, but again, it's the idea that they proceed to develop, they again, when they courting, it's all about being a gentleman. They're soft and, when I say soft, not like greedy, but you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
not rough with you. They approach you like a gentleman, like in the beginning, like they know what to do. And then it doesn't
Probably should be a red flag in and of itself.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're saying that majority of men are good, but not just how do we find them? Like, if it is there's a man faking it and a man who's genuinely good,
Little Miss Mediator, why do ladies love to do this? When we say statistically, a lion will beat a zebra, you're going to tell me, well, you know, it has some zebras beat up a lion before, you know? Like, yes, but we know the general truth.
Right? I mean, even with married men considered, in your friend circle, let's percentage it up. How many of them that you think are good men?
Good, high percentage, very high percentage, very high.
Okay.
Extremely high. I'll put it this way. In my friend circle, I don't know any bad men. And in my friend circle, among the men, I know some men who bounce there with some real bad women. And here's the thing. They will come and tell us some of the horror stories. And they will tell nobody else. They will never make a viral post. So it would always seem like she and he good. She don't do nothing. And then one day, he get vexed and flip off and cuss she out, she will record it and say abuse. Because that's just the difference in natures of men versus women. And that's why I started this off by saying my problem with your statement is it is going to create a gender war comparison. Where men attempt to say, we out here suffering more than y'all. And you're like, nah, we out here suffering more than y'all. Might it not be that from the perspective of each person, we're all suffering a lot? And Little Miss Mediator and Ronnie basically expressed the same idea. Don't you understand why women don't go out there? And yes, I do. And it's the same thing for men too. There's a loneliness crisis for men, and the MG2 men going their own way, and the Sigma males, men who ain't want a woman again because all of them women is thing, and passport bros, like we don't get a Western woman, like we fly out to some other part of the world and get women from there. There are guys like that too, because they look out at the landscape and see just as bleak as some of the women looking out at the landscape. The thing is, I don't think that's reason, because as I said, I think life by itself is difficult. It's a Christian perspective where the Bible speaks about take up your cross and follow me. Take up that heavy burden. That's literally what life is about. As a man, my job is to, as best as I can every hour of every day, try to supply as much as I can to make things as comfortable for those I have. That's not easy, because it's a 24 men who do that job do not sleep about that job. They are always thinking about it. It tortures their mind, but they won't tell you that.
Nathan, I have to believe that this is your friend circle. When it is you talk about these men, are you thinking about like specific men that you relate this to?
Yes.
Well, I'm here to tell you that is not the majority, Nathan. You may look at people in a particular industry and think, oh, these people are toiling. You might look at the oil and gas industry, see that it's 95% men who out there on the rigs, who out there drilling, who out there doing this, who out there doing that, and think these dangerous jobs, women aren't doing them. So the men automatically are risking their lives to be able to bring more bread and butter. But when you look at all the other professions and careers and paths, are you genuinely seeing this?
Well, no, of course, not all the careers are dangerous, but not all women are in difficult positions either.
Men, are you seeing that they're going above and beyond to support their family, that they're grinding heavy
Yes.
and hard in majority of men?
Well, I don't know the majority of men. I can't say that. And no, I don't think so. Because I think Trinidad and I,
This is happening.
but here's what I'll say on that. I don't think the majority of women put maximal effort into their duties either. I don't think the
Take your time out. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. We've already established, if not in this life, in our life before, we've already established that the majority of single parent households are
mothers.
correct? Which means that even if it is in the point that you made before in this life where you would co-parent, even if it is you're not together or if it is you make whatever because the child is your concern, if it is you do what you're supposed to do because you're a parent at the end of the day, it means that a single parent who's the primary parent, most times the mother, because majority of single parents are mothers.
Yes.
That means they should not be struggling as much because they still have the present father even though they're not living together, correct?
It should be so, but that's not how it goes.
But even with the single parent households we have that are women led, are you seeing that the men are stepping up in their role?
No, they are not.
Are the women struggling? Because then if that's the case, if it is 85% of single parent households are women, and let's say 65 to 75% of single parent households are struggling, it means that in 65 to 75% of that's the males falling short. So even the idea, but I mean you can't compare it all together because you still have those relationships where the parents are together. But even in that, you still have it where the men aren't pulling their weight. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. Hence the reason there is a double time or double work happening on the woman's side to make things happen. Again, not saying that at the end of the day, women shouldn't have selected better, women should have known better or whatever. I'm definitely not going to say that. Especially, this would be a real ignorant statement for me to say as a woman. I'd be damned if somebody else made me a single mother for a second time. I'm just saying.
Here's an interesting statistic. Here's an interesting statistic. I think it's now the majority of households in the United States are in the black families are single mother. Do you know the majority of black men are not distanced fathers? The vast majority. Do you know what that signals? Those majority of single parent homes are made by a tiny minority of men. The very same issue I just raised. Part of the issue here, hey, what going on with you? Part of the issue here is a lot of those single struggling parent homes have the same daddy. And yes, I am not saying that those men aren't bad. They are waste men. They are horrible men. They are the men that are causing a lot of the troubles in society. I'm not disagreeing at all. At no point in time am I disagreeing with that. All I'm saying here is I don't believe men are disproportionately more wicked than women, and I don't believe that the duties of a household are harder on women than they are on men. And where I would say, like you were talking about whether the majority of men do that and whether most men, yeah.
The duties of a woman or the work of a woman in the house is not harder if it is the man acts as he's supposed to once he is in his role and function as he's supposed to be in his role and function. But that's what I'm saying, like majority of the households, the work that the woman does, okay, like let's look, when you look at like back in the day and you think about I don't know if this was reality, I didn't live in them times. The reality, if it is, it was that, okay, the man brings home the money, so the woman does everything else, that idea. I don't know if that was how it was, but when it is you think about it, there are a lot of men who have that idea nowadays. Once it is I bring home the paper, once it is I make enough money, you know they say high value man, and they literally only mean value in the money that they bring home. If it is I earn a certain amount of money, everything else should be, and I mean even to the point where
What's wrong with that?
Please let me know. This is a whole new topic. It's because
That's a new topic. That's a new topic. It is. And here's the thing, eh? First of all, part of the issue,
how much parenting is, especially when it's more than one child. I think they think, oh, you just home all day.
I think part of the issue, and it was a technological issue to some extent, the Industrial Revolution changed things a lot. So, before the Industrial Revolution, the role of a man was extremely clear because work was extremely hard. So, it wasn't even a matter of men decide to go to work and women decide to stay home and take care of the children. And that wasn't even fully how it was. Women worked, but more so closer to home, and the men went at a distance to try and get as much as they could. So as Industrial Revolution changed and the man's job was much less laborious, but some of the roles remained the same, I agree. Some of what some people think is traditional home, where you go to an office, sit down and type for 8 hours and your wife works all day very hard. That's foolishness. I agree. I don't disagree with those things. I have no debate on any of those things. I think that's not a good thing. And I think a man, in terms of raising his child, you have a lot of rules to play in discipline. It's not just about the money. If you think that, you would be a fool. And I disagree with a lot of those high value attempted men and what they say. But part of the issue that I think many women need to have cleared up in their mind to understand some of this is there are not more good women than there are good men. That's a fallacy. And I know you want to feel like that, but it's not true. And here's something to consider. Men decide who they're going to marry. Here's a consideration. If you are not with a good man doesn't want you yet. Are you what a good man wants? Because good men out here marrying women.
If you're not with a good man, are you what a good man wants?
That's a good question, isn't it? Because if there are good men and men pursue women, if a good man isn't pursuing you, is the question, maybe you don't have what a good man wants? And this is why the original red pill guy, Kevin Samuels, who a lot of people hated, when you listen actually a lot of his content, most of it made a lot of sense, and it was more distorted coming down after people reproduced it. That was the question he asked most women. So, okay, if you are 35 and you are looking for good men, we know there are good men out there. Good men choose the woman that they want. Are you saying between the age of 20 to 35, for those 15 years, no good man saw you and wanted you? Is there possibly something that you could do now that maybe might attract the good men better? That's a consideration. Instead of wondering, maybe how do we change all of these bad men into good men? And but I think it's actually more likely this. I think it's not more likely that the good men never approached you. I think it's actually more likely that you didn't notice when the good men approached you.
Oh, wait, take your time. Oh, yeah, don't generalize it to me because...
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you in specific. I'm saying, no. That whole spiel I just had wasn't directed at you. I was saying that in general, because it wasn't only you, Little Miss Mediator, Avril, Ronnie, all of y'all in the chat, and it's a common. I tell you, just this weekend we were talking about this.
I want to ask this question next. That at the end of the day, a good woman, the same way a good man changes definition based on your partner, the same thing with a good woman. So, for example, it may have a good man because he's intellectual, he's able to to provide for his family. He's a good man of God. He is somebody who has good morals. He has good ethics. He's somebody who knows time and place. He knows rule and function. He knows how to be a chameleon in a family setting. It could be this way, but when it is you and I alone on a dinner date, you could be that way. You know, it is always, you know, that's somebody who like in a generalization is good, right? But it could have one or two things about him that doesn't gel with what is considered a general good from somebody else. So when it is you have these ideas of just saying, no, I get the general good man and good woman, but sometimes good in the same way or good in opposite ways still not good enough. I don't know if that makes sense. Because then even if it is, I am a good woman and this man is a good man, but he, and I know you will not say, well, this is so minor, you need to live with it. If he does something like, when it is he comes home, he fling off his shoes or he pee and leave the toilet seat up, and they might say, well, of all the things to deal with like that is some of the easier things to deal with. I couldn't possibly interpret it as not just that you don't love me enough, but you don't consider me enough. Because if I have to say 20 times, and you please put your shoe in the corner when you come home, and every time you just throw it, you make me feel like you don't respect me.
Yeah.
You make me feel like if it is you don't care to hear what it is I have to say, or you don't care about the order that I have the house in.
Yeah.
And just that simple act, and you might say, Washwear is just his shoes. Like out of all the things he does do, this one thing you're going and harp over. It's not about this one thing that you're harping over, but what it is, it translates to mean for me. Because a simple thing like putting your shoes in a corner shouldn't be such a difficult thing that I have to coach a man to do. When it is you see it how it is, the house is laid out, or how it is neat, or
Here's what I think.
whatever.
I think the same reasoning you said for why the men like young women is how marriage is supposed to be. Not all men. No. Let me finish. No, not all man with a young woman who trains she to love him kicking off his shoe. Young people with young people where they both train each other. I grew up in a house only men. I learned how to put on seat over time.
Somebody has to tell you that 20, 40, 50 times.
People still tell me that. And it's just the reality. And he may have things that are tedious on his side. Now, where I will give credit on the good guy, like somebody asked, what is a good guy? Define a good man. Sorry, lovey. Here's a problem oftentimes with a good guy. Sometimes losers say that they're good guys. And he's not a good guy, he's just a loser. And a loser isn't a good man for a woman to go for. So I understand why oftentimes women end up with the bad 5%. Because you don't want a loser. Usually, many women may rather a criminal than a loser. Because if the tata hit the fan, listen, it may actually be a logic. Listen, Ria, listen what I'm saying carefully. Biologically.
Why you feel women want, like, you cannot be in a circle where you have good men and only see in a circle of these types of women. But wait, that's not it.
What types of... No, I see good women too. I'm not saying I don't see... But I'm saying... Many women would rather choose a criminal than a loser. You don't believe that? In school days, listen, in school days, the bad boy who used to get suspended and beat up people, did he have more girlfriends or less girlfriends than the dork who in the corner doing all his homework?
First things first, I wouldn't know I went to all-girls school.
Don't lie, because all girls school always used to have a boyfriend too.
Hold on, babe, not me.
I didn't say you. I didn't say you.
Hold on, wait.
You didn't answer my question.
I hear what you're saying, but I raised it $2.
Okay.
Here's my thing. It is not necessary. I'm not saying that, okay, the obvious choice that if it is you were to look at a case study, you would see that a lot of them navigate towards one person more than the other. But then that also has to do with the way in which the man, young boy, sorry, because they're not a man yet, the young boy promotes himself.
That's what I was saying.
But it's full of confidence.
That's what I was actually saying.
But
That's the point.
the dog was confident.
Let me finish the point. And I'd make that point. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes fellas say, oh, I'm a good guy and she never liked me. And he's not a good guy. He's a loser. And you deserve to lose if you're a loser. And I understand why a woman wouldn't choose a loser. Because if this person has to lead you, would you want to be led by the person who is losing everything? That makes no damn sense, does it? So I understand. And I understand that dilemma. It's a difficult dilemma because you want to choose a winner. You know what, a loser? All losers going to say they're good guys. There are good guys who are not losers.
Men say they're good guys.
That's not true.
Nathan, I can tell you from personal experience, there is somebody who, I'm telling you, from personal
Listen,
experience,
Ria,
enough men
fellas saying they're bad is a technique
will know.
that attracts women still.
Let's go. No. You know what?
You've never met a fella that tell you he bad?
Of course not, but that's what I'm not going to tell you. Let us go on a mindful mission one of these
Yeah.
days. We have a meetup under the tree like we promised that we were going to have since the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And then we start walking around all over the place interviewing fellas. Do you think you're a good guy? And hear what all of them have to say. There is no... Like, if you want to ask Terrence if he's a good man, he say yes.
Ria, real men say they aren't good men, innit? I know men who tell...
All men say they're good.
You know how I know this is a trope?
Nothing wrong with them.
Ria, you know how I know this is a trope? There's a R&B song about it that women love. That, what is this? What was the, oh gosh, So Sick of Love song, fella name again by? Neo. He sing a song, Don't Fall in Love. I'm not the one. No emotion, babe. We're just having fun. All I'm gonna do is hurt you. And women love that song. You know why? Because men can sing that song to some women and they will still insist, I'm gonna be the one to change you. So here's the thing. I don't believe all men say they're good because I know men that say they're bad.
Nathan, we're going on a mindful mission.
All right. I don't mind.
I'm not trusting you to plan it because you didn't say you're not a planner. So Empress, I know you saw many comments. We're going on a mindful mission. The mission is, do all guys say they're good guys? And we're going to ask different demographics from young to old.
I would like that.
Not yellow, blue, pink, purple, green, everything. Everything. We're going on a mission.
I would like that.
Just to make sure and even it out, we have to ask the females too. We have to ask the females too, honestly, like if it is they think that they're good women.
Do you think all women think they're good women?
Absolutely not.
There are women that think they're bad?
Even for me, who thinks that I'm not bad, especially as a mother, I know there is so much improvement that I have to go through. Genuinely know to myself, like I was talking to one of my friends the other day and she was telling me, well, you're doing well, she's proud of me or whatever. And I'd be like, girl, if I tell you some days I've cussed Alex, like it is hard days, I just want to hold him, just shake him. And because it's just him and I, again, the same thing, there is no good cop, bad cop dynamic. If it's I alone doing good cop, bad cop, I look like I have schizophrenia. I look like I'm bipolar. I look like I just have some sort of mental disorder because
But Haniel says that mommy guilt serious. I agree, the mommy guilt is serious. But I'm not talking about internal guilt. I am talking about, for example, if you go around and ask men and women to rate themselves out of 10, how many men will say they're 10 out of 10 versus how many women will say they're 10 out of 10?
put that down, Ronnie is still here. Put that down in the mindful mission for me, please. Put it down in the mindful mission.
Ria, you don't watch those panel podcasts.
I don't watch podcasts.
Because that's one of the most common trope.
Why would you sit around and watch podcasts? Like, if it was like one on like.
Listen, I like to see what people say. I'm a curious guy. But from my experience, women think more women are good and more men are bad. That assumption is an assumption that we are better than y'all. We are good, y'all are bad. If you ask men by and large, men might even say men worse. Because I find, out of the men and women I know, the people that are most openly self-critical are generally men.
Ooh, we had to go on this mindful mission.
We do.
We had to go on this mindful mission.
But I had to go make sure the host sleeping.
No problem.
People, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Life. Thank you for tuning in. As usual, it was good as always. I'll see you again for the next Mindful Life, hopefully tomorrow at that same 9:30 time. Until then, people, peace out. Hold it down. Laters. Bye.